Thanks for your time today. Our topic is looking at financial planning and analysis, and specifically the considerations of moving to quarterly budgeting with Vena Solutions. On the line, we have Samir and Alexi. They'll be talking about some of the best practices, approaches, and tools from Vena. Within our relationship with Vena, we've been a trusted partner for a number of years, and Vena works with Business Central, Dynamics NAV, and Dynamics GP. On the Business Central NAV side, it does pull in the dimensions for your reporting needs, and obviously chart of accounts and all the other financial as well as non-financial data. A variety of features and functions, many of which far exceed what you'd find in Jet Reports or Management Reporter. And in terms of moving to quarterly budgeting, what I have bolded here, it's the automated communications, the workflow tracking, the email notices, the notes back and forth in your budgets, in your forecasts that you may be sharing between finance, line of business, executive team, and creating all those pieces together to really have that efficiency that frees up the time for the greater level of analysis and moving into quarterly budgeting. So this slide here has a few builds starting on the right. Vena connects to a number of systems. It has its own cloud-based data mart, data warehouse to consolidate the data. It has options for embedded Power BI, both being a source as well as connecting. And Vena really, pulls together all the different lines of business. We have the finance, HR, operations, which are really the super users, HR from a labor perspective, and then all of the other line of business components, Vena connecting those dots together. And it really is that one centralized overlayer on top of obviously Dynamics GP or Business Central or Dynamics NAV. So with that in mind, let me introduce you over to Alexi. Actually, Alexi, why don't you introduce yourself and take it on from there?
Of course, thank you so much, Scott. So hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be presenting to you today. My name is Alexi Matlar, and I've been at Vena for over 4 years now in a variety of different roles, but currently work with our partner ecosystem and get to work with really great partners like Endeavour, as well as the rest of our Microsoft ERP clientele. The world we live in right now, we have accomplished a lot in the past 2.5 years, and we've been through a pretty crazy time for a variety of different reasons. So it goes without saying that the COVID pandemic has changed the way that business is done, and many of those changes are still here. For example, digital transformation progressed by about 10 years in a period of 2 years, which is pretty interesting. We'll also see massive borrowing, which has driven inflation and interest rates, which have really impacted the environments which businesses are currently functioning in. And another thing which has been really interesting to see is that employee retention rates have been affected across businesses through people starting to think about, am I doing what I want to do with my life? Are they working in the right environment? So if they have return to office mandates, do they actually want to return to office? Do they want to go permanently remote, et cetera here? But it has impacted businesses' abilities to hold on to their employees. And these factors, crossed with some uncertainty that still is going to be coming within the market, has changed the way that businesses are doing. And trying to navigate these waters going forward is still a very high priority for businesses. And what's been cool to see is how it has affected finance departments. So in the past, finance has been more of a back office function, but has been now been given a seat at the leadership table in driving strategy and direction. And this particularly was challenging over the past few years for organizations who weren't prepared to move finance into this leadership sort of role. So what I mean here is organizations who relied on-premise or antiquated systems, worked with generally disconnected spreadsheets. They were caught a bit off guard as there's immense pressure to be able to plan in a more agile fashion and see the multiple different scenarios of what could potentially happen in the future. So within FP&A, whose main focus is again planning for the future, tools like Vena have really helped organizations to maintain visibility into their future projections and exactly see where they are going forward. And this transformation, there's a couple different bits of evidence other than us just talking about it. One is just the dramatic increase in the number of planning and analytics tools in the market. Another is the increase in funding for the sector. and even posting things like job postings about needing expertise in specific systems. The whole planning and analytics tool or a suite of tools has become much more common. And also data from CFO's priorities over past year, it also reflects that too. So this was a survey which was done by BPM Partners, who is basically an industry analyst. This was done in December 2021. So what are the most important objectives for CFOs? And it's not so much that strategic planning is number one, it's that the top 4 priorities, so strategic planning, continuous forecasting, scenario modeling, and ad hoc reporting, all relate around understanding the exact business environment right now and how can they agilely plan going forward for various different market conditions. So what is the best path forward then for companies? There's a couple different ideas. So with this, there's really 2 options for companies. So the first option is to ultimately just budget and reforecast more regularly. So many organizations, they're on a 1-year budget cycle right now, and they might reforecast. But with so many different changes, the budget might be irrelevant towards the end of the year, or the plans might be completely different, and they might be in a completely different environment. So starting to reforecast more regularly, whether that is every quarter or monthly or et cetera. Another option too is because there's so many variations within business, so things like commodity price changes, assumptions, employee retention, or even just internal negotiations between departments over budgeted dollars. Organizations can make several different iterations of the budget, test out different scenarios, apply sensitivity analysis, and really decide upon which is the best path forward, or even just budget with high, mid, or low kind of scenario test. So adopting these strategies tend to help organizations to fewer surprises along the road and be better equipped when they do have unexpected changes, and be a little bit more proactive versus reactive. And ideally, we would want to do both, because you're going to have the best outcomes because you understand what the current scenario is and you're also prepared with the most scenarios. So when organizations want to move to that new reality and adopt a quarterly budgeting process, or to whatever frequency they want, there are a lot of really good options in the market. And Endeavour's partnered with Vena because of our underlying approach to technology, and have done a lot of good business together. And ultimately, you can do changes like this with Excel and your ERP, but most organizations simply aren't equipped at the level of discipline and kind of organizational rigor to be able to handle this. And ultimately, there's going to be very big bottlenecks in the tools. So if you're an organization who has anything more than what we call a vanilla budgeting process, these kinds of systems will help. So moving on to adopting budgetly on a quarterly basis. So what exactly can systems like Vena do? So first off is Vena, our database is connected to all underlying systems within an organization. So information like ERPs, where there's already the most up-to-date information. I have also automated workflows and reminders that make sure everyone's staying on track. So if there starts to be a bottleneck or someone slowing down the budget process, you can understand who is this person, what's exactly happening, and you can make changes accordingly into your process to prevent that from happening. Beauty of the system as well is it's flexible enough to handle natural negotiations that happen inside the company, and test out different asks from different department leaders for what-if scenarios. So these things might be like investing in a new product line, or a new marketing campaign, or opening up a new manufacturing plant. And Vena has the ability to automate a lot of these calculations, and you can actually see the impact on your bottom line. As well, the entire cut, copy, paste routine, which a lot of finance teams do from disconnected spreadsheets, it becomes a thing of the past. So this alone tends to save organizations hundreds of hours. And part of the beauty too is with Vena is that communication throughout this process has never been easier. So trends around organizational goals, because it's attached to an underlying database, can be easily tracked for the first time ever. So you can actually get executive buy-in because they're interested in organizational health at a high level. Also, organizations, they can run their top-down or bottoms-up budgets and reforecast, and they have Vena do all the heavy lifting, so again, understand where to meet in the middle. There's also new financial data models, let you connect data and build a mural for your organization in one place. So something like predictive analytics suddenly becomes a possibility with this. And also new reports and dashboards that show organizational KPIs that compare various different scenarios to what exactly happened. Suddenly all this becomes available in real time. And last but not least, which Samir will be showing you a little bit later on during a demo, Vena is a 100% Microsoft Excel front end. So the beauty of this is it's a little bit less scary, if you will. It's a little bit easier to adopt than having a whole team have to learn a whole new proprietary technology. And ultimately what this leads to is higher user adoption and a lot more collaboration and just a greater level of communication with organizations, getting value from tool planning and analytics tool. So this all sounds fine, but what exactly is Vena?
If I can jump in, Alexi, just talking about the Excel front end. Some of our clients are using Business Central and Dynamics NAV and maybe using Jet Reports. So Jet Reports is also an Excel front end, but what it lacks is it doesn't have the cloud database. It doesn't have the budgeting capabilities. It doesn't have the workflow and the email triggers that Samir will be showing. And it doesn't have the automation of the creating of the reporting packages. So these are all really cool things that are manual processes or light analysis that our clients are doing. And for those that have adopted Vena, they're finding an acceleration of many of those practices, which is freeing up additional time for even more collaboration and impact in their organizations from a finance leadership perspective. So just wanted to jump into that. Like it's definitely a lot more than just here's an Excel tool with bells and whistles.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right, Scott. I think it's a really, really great point. I think the one thing which can differentiate Vena with the, of course, Excel front end is just the completeness of the tool. It's not, again, just a reporting tool. What we call it is the most complete planning tool. So what exactly we mean by this in the process that it covers? We cover things like finance-led planning, extended planning, and beyond planning. So with finance-led planning, these are processes just like budgeting, forecasting, reporting. These are the processes which finance teams tend to do a lot. And essentially what we do is we automate and streamline a lot of these tasks. So teams can basically get out of the thick of the thin, and they can, instead of spending half their time on the whole copy-paste routine and simply just passing information over and trying to reformat it so it's digestible, teams can actually start using this time for value-add analysis. Also impact areas called what we call extended planning. So this is parts of the planning process, but they tend to be driven by other parts of the organization. So we might see workforce planning or sales planning or operational planning, for example. The thing is, communication with these processes is paramount because not everyone's going to be an expert on finance software, especially if they aren't even in finance themselves. This keeps user adoption high and keeps information being able to pass in a smooth and understandable way. The other really cool part, and I think this is where some really cool things happen with Vena, is the beyond planning capabilities. So anything which is actually repeatable, collaborative, and done in Excel can be done in Vena. So we start touching processes like financial close and incentive compensation management. We start to see some really interesting other use cases. My favorite one is a chicken restaurant client of ours uses Vena to forecast which dipping sauces are shipped to which store according to their need. And start to see that. We have over 1,300 clients. You start to see lots of other really interesting use cases with Vena. So double clicking on that growth engine, what kind of more makes it up other than just the process that you work with? So at the center of Vena is ultimately reporting and analytics, and leverage Excel and Power BI as the workflow front ends. But what actually makes up this growth engine that we're talking about? So first is collaboration. So ultimately what Vena does is it connects different parts of the organization who were previously disconnected and breaks down data silos. Also leverage a central database. So data integrity issues are a thing of the past. You're working from one source of the truth. Have fantastic integrations to 200 plus systems, including all Microsoft ERPs and pretty much almost every system which people are going to be actively involved in this. We also build integrations to other new systems. Also flexible and powerful workflows. It's all drag and drop functionality. So organizations can actually adapt their Vena instance as their organization grows, or if they acquire other company, or business happens to whatever goes on. Also strong security and compliance to make sure the data only stays in the hands of those it's intended to see, so both inside and outside their organization. And what's really cool is our modeling capabilities as well. With being such a close Microsoft partner, we piggyback on all Microsoft's investments into systems like Excel and Power BI and reporting and analytics. So that's all still present in Vena, except it's tied to the power of an enterprise database. And I'm going to share this slide again just because I think it's really important and drives the points home. So with a lot of organizations, we'll see data silos, which happen by data warehouse or CRM, or it could be an ERP system like Dynamics. It might also be data silos by department. So if finance doesn't speak to sales, or the information doesn't connect, or marketing doesn't connect to HR in the way it needs to. Vena ultimately layers on top of all these systems and connects them and acts as that single source of truth, which is really cool. Other than that too, we're not just about trying to speed up process. Ultimately, what Vena is trying to do is it's trying to give finance teams the more time back in their day so they can do more of the interesting, really strategic work which they so desire to do. We want teams to be able to plan in an agile fashion, be able to have an integrated planning process rather than just be siloed, and ultimately make planning into a habit rather than just a process which they do sometimes, and ultimately make them feel confident about their numbers and work closer as a team. And last year, before I pass it off to Samir, who's going to be showing you the product, Vena's, again, a very close partner of Microsoft, and we've continued to invest. Right now, we're the only planning and analytics solution. We've actually embedded Power BI into the Vena product. So you get the eye-popping visualizations and dynamic dashboards from Power BI, but they're actually powered by the enterprise database. And we continue to invest in all different Microsoft technology, wherever Microsoft technology is going, which is really, I think, quite an interesting thing if you're a company on the Microsoft suite of products. So with this, I'm going to pass it off to Samir, who's going to show you the Vena product. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Alexi.
Well, thanks, Scott. Thanks, Alexi. And thank you everyone for joining. As a quick introduction, my name is Samir Shah, Director of Solution Consulting here at Vena. And so I get the pleasure and honor to kind of work with our partners and our customers and prospects to be able to identify, what parts of Vena are going to be applicable and present that in a demonstration. So I'll be sharing my screen here in a second and walking you through Vena.
I don't see your screen yet. There we go.
And you see the right one?
I'm not sure. Looks like a green desktop. PowerPoint?
PowerPoint, perfect. Yeah, that's the right one then.
Thank you, sir. I'll turn my webcam off, and that'll make the screen real estate a little bit bigger for everyone else as well.
Okay.
It's all yours.
Cool. So, cool. Thanks, Scott. So this is just a quick summary of kind of the journey we're going to go on today. We're going to cover kind of 4 main key areas of Vena. One is about accessing instant reporting and analysis, right? Having the ability to get that data out of the system in a fashion that you are familiar with, and that's Excel. Then we'll build onto the budgeting side of Vena, where you can walk through kind of how to execute a budgeting task. And kind of leading into that point Scott made earlier, that it's not just a reporting tool, right? We are actually orchestrating financial processes directly inside Vena. And then we can show you exactly how those processes are built and managed in a way that is owned by finance. So it's not a tool that needs to go back to IT every time we need to make a change. So we want to show you how you can map and manage that process. And then leaning into advanced analytics, getting into how you can leverage Vena to uncover insights in your data that you weren't necessarily thinking about before. And that really is kind of diving into our Power BI experience. So that's the journey we're going to go on today. And to start off that journey, we're going to go and jump into a browser. So here I'm going to be logging into Vena. I'll be logging in as a finance user, finance contributor. I'm going to use my username and password to be able to, get a personalized view of things that are important to me. Oftentimes when we are working on multiple processes and multiple places, doing reporting and budgeting and everything is disconnected, it's hard to find out where I need to go and what I need to interact with. Vena streamlines that into a single page here where I can see across multiple different processes what the different tasks I have, right? The tasks that have been assigned to me, and any sort of timelines and due dates so that we can ensure that we're completing those tasks in a timely fashion. We're going to go ahead and start off in our reporting side of it. So I've got multiple different task types, inputs, reviews, and reports. And I can quickly filter down into the reports that I have access to and can open on and that I can open anytime I need. Right? Certain tasks are going to be just there for me all the time, and I can be able to review it at different things like my financial statements. Other tasks may show up at the right point in time throughout that process, and for things I need to review. Let's go ahead and start off with our financial and operational reports. Here we can see a laundry list of different types of capability, different types of functional reports that I may be interacting with. Let's start pretty high level from a finance perspective and open up our financial statement. So this task gives me an overview of exactly kind of what this task is about and all the different templates that I would be interacting with to be able to consume that data. Then I will simplify all of the access for that because it puts those templates here directly inside this experience, so I don't have to search through multiple folders or find things in email. As I click the View button here, we're going to be moving from the web experience into Excel. This is the native desktop Excel, the same one that you likely have on your computer today. And if I move away this choose box, what we're going to see is that this has been organized with a couple of tabs and around income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow, and some variance and dashboarding capabilities as well. But what we don't see is data. As I interact with this template, I'm able to pick and choose exactly what part of the business do I want to report on. So here I'm presented with a couple of options around my entities where I can look at all entities across the company. So if I was as part of the executive leadership team, I would have visibility across everything. But if I was a department head for Chicago, Houston, Los Angeles, Toronto, I'd be able to pick and choose those areas and be presented with a view of my income statement and so on and so forth that is specific to my area of domain. I can also select different departments, right? And if I was only part of one department, if I was only part of the sales team, I would only see the sales entry here. So security is driving visibility around what I have access to, but I'm able to toggle between multiple different departments while maintaining a consistent experience of one single template. So it's very easy for me to execute all the different reporting needs that I have. But on the maintenance side, it's one template that is maintained within Vena, and you're consuming different sets of data depending on your user profile and the specific task at hand. I'm going to go ahead and leave this as all departments. We're doing it for 2023, but we can certainly kind of dip into the future or look back into the past. And here we're looking at our budget scenario. Within Vena, we can maintain multiple scenarios. So as we complete our budget, we may copy that over into a forecast and start to do some variance analysis on that. Or if we are doing any reforecasting, that would be the place where we would be able to manage all those activities while maintaining a budget in a locked up format where nobody can make changes to it. So essentially this choose box is allowing me to identify what part of the business do I want to report on. As I click apply selection, all the data will now be presented inside of this template. That's Vena bringing the data into Excel, right? And really kind of cementing in Excel as a window into all of my financial information, where it's been organized through all of my key revenue accounts, operating expenses, and different allocated and depreciation amortization. This data is completely live, coming directly from Vena, and it again is honoring the filtering that I did in that choose box, so giving me a view of that specific part of the business that I'm looking to analyze. We can bring this in a different format where we're looking at our balance sheet, so I can see all my assets, PP&E, and liabilities and equity, as well as open up a cash flow statement, giving me a complete view of all my ending balances as part of this budget that we're putting in place for next year. So as a finance user, I have the ability to consume all this data in real time, where we can start to see it and have access to it at our fingertips at any point in time where we need to be able to analyze it. And as anytime anyone is making changes into this, if I go back to my income statement, if the product team or the sales team is making changes to any of the revenue data, as they are inputting that data into Vena, this report will automatically reflect those up-to-dates instantly. So there's no lagging of information. There's no consolidating of data across multiple teams or departments. Vena does all of that for me because it's housing my data and also has a view in terms of the hierarchy of that information around how the departments, products, entities would roll up across the different categories of measures that we have. So here's an example of kind of the common financial statements that we may already be looking at. If I head over to my variance, we can see a different type of report that is comparing two different scenarios here in my actual versus forecast. So now we can look at things side by side at a monthly level, quarterly level, and a year-to-date level. All of these reports are built in the same way. They're all built in Excel, leveraging the Vena panel here on the right-hand side, allowing me to identify what are the different rows, columns, and page filters and how they map back to the Vena data model. Very similar to a format of a pivot table where you would have rows, columns, and then the filters. Once you're able to build 1 or 2 reports, you can kind of really bring out any sort of data. You can bring any data to life in a format of a Excel report, similar to what you're seeing here. Before I show a few other examples really quickly of different types of reports that you can do in Vena, because the data is in Excel, we have the ability to take advantage of all the visualizations that Excel provides. So all the knowledge that you know around how to like organize and kind of structure data in Excel and visualize it, all of that applies here, but now we're leveraging live Vena data that is being centrally stored and collaboratively populated. Here we have our net income, revenue, operating expense, and cost of goods sold key indicators, and we can use all the different graphing capabilities like bar charts, waterfall charts, line charts, and things like that. So here is a financial statement, a set of financial statements that we are building out and consuming through Excel from Vena. Let's go ahead and open up a few other examples. I'll close that task here. We may want to go ahead and look at some reports on incentive compensation. We can manage that complete process here in Vena. And as a sales manager, I may want to have a team attainment report where I want to look at all the different deals that are coming in and how the individuals are targeting towards their quota. So I can populate this in here. I can select the exact user that I want to look at, so which team I'm trying to analyze, and pick the different plans, timeframes, just like we saw before. And now here's another report that I can consume, right? It's a different set of data. It's organized very differently, right? This isn't your standard financial statement, income statement, cash flow statement. I'm looking at a very purpose-built tool, a purpose-built report that's telling me for Mackenzie here, what is her current status in terms of all the different credits that she has. Vena is maintaining the overall process here. Certainly, we're being fed data in from our CRM, like Microsoft Dynamics, Salesforce, and other tools like that. And we can start to not only orchestrate the development of the plan, but generate the reports of all the users, not only the sales managers, but the individual sales reps themselves can also consume this information. I'll give one more ITM example, then we'll move into a different set. So here, if we go to compensation dashboard, we've got a report here built for the account rep, where they can see deal by deal exactly what is being attributed to their compensation, what is being, retiring quota for them. And we can see now it's a whole different kind of set of visuals that we're looking at, purpose-built for a account rep, sales rep. So here I can see all my ARR deals, all my services deals, what came in that month, giving me the visibility and the confidence that the compensation is being calculated correctly. There's no missed deals on my name. So you can distribute these reports to a wide range of individuals who can come in. Someone like a sales rep would only see one task, right? They would have their commission payout task, and they can always have access to it so that they know that the deals that are coming in are being appropriately allocated to their name. Now let's take a little bit of a shift here. So we started off with some financial statements. We went into an ICM plan. Let's go ahead and look at some things that are around that expanded budgeting use case that Alexi was talking about earlier. So here we can also maintain your account reconciliations and your financial close within Vena. And for financial close, there's a lot of different steps, a lot of different people involved. Some of them are automated, some of them are just checkboxes. I want to be able to see a complete view of exactly what the current status is for this current month. So again, I'm going to select the entity that I want to track and the month that we're in, and it's going to populate this template here, this report here, with all the different tasks that have been identified for a financial close, giving me a real-time view in the status of those tasks. I can see who's involved, what the date is for them to complete it, what the status is, who's going to review it, so I've got complete visibility. So from a report perspective, this is my go-to place to kind of track and analyze throughout the day, throughout the week, to know exactly how this process is moving forward. If we're able to stay on track with our financial close process, that ensures that we can have the reports generated for the executive team on time, but also opening up the capabilities for our finance users and our finance team to be strategic with all the information that Vena is storing, to be able to analyze and understand any sort of gaps in analysis or variances that we may want to take action on. And so having this complete visibility around all the different close tasks stored directly within Vena where some of them are being updated manually, right? Where in this situation, Gail can select submitted or not submitted, or some of them are being done directly inside Vena, where we can maintain your overall reconciliation process, allowing you at the end of the month to have a streamlined way of maintaining or reconciling your prepaid expenses, inventory, fixed assets, so on and so forth. So here's a different user that may be leveraged by that finance user that is kind of controlling and maintaining momentum across this monthly process that is very repeatable. So those are some examples of different types of reports that you may want to consume directly inside Vena. Again, as you can tell, when I go back to the overall task list here, there's a wide range of different processes that Vena can support. We bring all of that experience into one place, so users that are multitasking across those processes have one place to go. But certainly the types of reports that they can consume can be on operational side, manufacturing side, it could be in a payroll side as well. Any individuals that need to consume that data or need to be able to process that data as part of any other downstream processes, they would have a use case to be able to have a task that would allow them to view that information live from Vena. Now let's shift gears here a little bit from a reporting perspective. As Scott and Alex mentioned, Vena can certainly help your reporting needs, but behind that we also have a tool that allows us to execute all of our budgeting, forecasting, and revenue planning tasks. So here, putting that hat back on as Frank Jones, we're going to be taking a view of his expense planning task. Here he can review not only what the templates are that we saw earlier, but also who he's collaborating with, any instructions and documentation that's going to ensure that he knows exactly how to complete the task and can complete it accurately so that there's less back and forth through the review process. He has 2 days to complete this workflow, which we'll see in a little bit, is actually driving who gets involved when and how much time they have to complete that task. So this is very timely that he's starting this process now because it takes about 2 days for him to do it. Now let's go ahead and open up his operating expense template. Again, we're going from that web experience into Excel. We're going to see a choose box that's going to allow Frank to decide what department he wants to plan for. I'm going to leave it all blank, default for now. But here we can see that he can engage with multiple different scenarios, right, and provide input into those scenarios from a budget perspective, from an operating expense perspective, without toggling between multiple different files, folders, and things like that. As I apply my selection here, we're going to see this template populate. Right here we have our chart of accounts dynamically populating in. This can be synchronized with your ERP, with Dynamics, to be able to ensure that you have all the right accounts in the right logical order, and new accounts will automatically populate in here as well. Now, from a budget perspective, before we saw a lot of reports where we were consuming data. Now we're going to be putting data into Vena, right? And so, but we're doing it in Excel, right? But the data is all going to go back to the Vena data model. How does that work? Let's go ahead and go through this. So as Frank interacts with this template, just like he does with any Excel file that he's ever touched, he goes on a cell and he puts in a value. We're going to put in $50,000 for our advertising expense for our budget year of 2023 in the month of January. Now, if this is the only thing he was going to do, right? He'd be able to save this. Typically he would save this file, upload it to a folder, or send it over to his peers and say, this is my updated budgeting, my updated operating expense. But with Vena, he doesn't have to do any of those things. He simply heads over to the panel on the right-hand side and is able to click Save Data to Vena. That will instantly publish this information directly back into Vena's data model. So now it's available for Frank to see at any point in time. So if you were to delete this value and refresh that data, we're going to see the $50,000 come right back. This is fundamentally how Excel and the Vena data model are working bi-directionally to consume data, but also to present data back in a reporting fashion. But Frank has the ability to do all the capabilities that he loves and is familiar with in Excel. I can drag and drop values. I've got the ability to do formulas. I can link to different sheets and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's Excel without compromise, the full capabilities of Excel. This isn't a different version of Excel. We have embedded the Vena experience inside Excel so you can have that seamless transition from the web directly into Excel. Now, from a budget perspective, it's not just direct inputs that we are likely working with. You can set up drivers where we can look at historical information or other data within your business, like your full-time headcount or your training budget per employee or the different survey measures that you may have, and use that to drive out an intelligence spread across the year, month over month, making it a lot simpler to complete your budget. Similarly, you may have values that are being pushed down to you. So here we have centrally planned values around repairs, office supplies, and rent. I can't make changes to those. Vena has locked those in. Travel expense is something we do need to have detailed analysis on, or detailed documentation on. So if you look over here, this is actually linking to a separate travel sheet. Very common format in Excel. Head over to my travel input tab. Now I can see all the different trips that have been outlined, all the different expense categories like lodging, meals, rental, and travel fare. And I can now map out exactly how those are going to spread across the different months for this budget year, and simply take those totals and map that back into my input tab. So as a budgeter, you have the ability to get granular if you need to. Vendor level planning, CapEx planning, here we have travel, any of those individual or advertising expense campaign. If any of those things where you do want to have granular information, you can create that sheet. It stores with this template. The data is not lost as it goes through the approval process, but we're summarizing it at a monthly level, so all your reporting is being completed in a consistent fashion. As I am planning, oftentimes I do want to look at my historical data, so I do have the ability to bring that data in from your ERP into Vena, so you have visibility to it. Not only does this help with spreading, but just gives you insights on any sort of month that may be higher or lower, so you can forecast out your budget accurately. At any point in time, if I do want to look at this and drill down into the invoices, with Vena, I do have the ability to see those transactions directly inside Excel, saving me time from going to a different system, kind of running a report, finding out the specific set of data that I'm looking to analyze. In this case, it's January actuals of 2022. I can see that in Excel. I can convert this into a table, may put it into a graph, a pivot table, anything like that, because now it is stored in Excel. It is in Excel, and I have all the ability and the capabilities of Excel on my fingertips. Similarly, we may have other systems that are publishing data like salaries and wages directly inside of Vena as well, so I can consume that data here in a comprehensive view of my template. But again, I'm not going to be able to make changes to it. So really kind of centralizing the data in Excel, providing that information in a unified experience or across one sheet or multiple templates that's been optimized for your users so that they have all the information so that they can complete their budget and tasks accurately. Now, along the way, Vena is actually tracking everything for me, where I can see I made these changes into Vena. I'm going to go ahead and save that. And once I complete saving, I'm going to go ahead and open up my audit trail. Every value that we're making a change to inside Vena is being tracked and monitored, where I can see cell by cell, value by value, how those values are being updated. So giving me visibility and transparency across the organization, for ensuring any sort of any mistakes that went in, factoring of numbers, or just kind of oversight by the users, those can be caught and understood where they were created and rectified appropriately. At any point in time, if I needed to have a conversation, or often these budgeting tasks are collaborative, instead of me going and sending a Slack message to Alexi or Scott, I have the ability to go in directly inside Vena and collaborate cell by cell and have a business-driven, in-context conversation around what this value represents. So if we were doing anything specific around advertising in January, I can say it was part of a new budget, a new product launch, so that when Betty Barnes reviews this, she knows exactly what's happening and can continue moving the process forward. Vena maintains not only the collaboration of data input and the aggregation of that data, but any sort of business conversations that surround it, put it in context of the process and in the flow of work of your budget contributors. So at this point, I'm done kind of, with the work that I need to. I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I can close off this template and kind of submit this task for future processing. Sorry, for further processing. So what happened then is now it's logged as review. Now everything is locked up. I can't make changes to it. It's actually sitting in the hands of Jane Gold, who is going to be reviewing this So now we're going to take that next pivot in this demonstration where we're going to move into the workflow section. So for that, I'm going to get out of the view of Frank Jones, and here I'm logged in as Samir Shah. I have an admin profile, so I have a couple of additional tabs here around admin, insights, modeler that have been opened up under this profile. What we're going to do is look at a workflow and understand how we can not only build and maintain those processes, but also monitor execution. Before we do that, here we can see all the different types of processes that you can build and maintain in one within Vena. So on a single platform, you have the ability to start with budgeting or start with reporting, but with the same users, with the same licenses that you have within Vena, you can expand out and grow your footprint. There's no additional cost. From a use case perspective, it really just comes down to the users that are involved in those processes. But as you open up more and more things that they're doing with Vena, you're building additional strategic capabilities by having access to those reports instantly and driving collaboration, but also the overall return on investment and total cost of ownership grows with additional usage as well. We were focusing on our annual plan earlier as part of Frank, so let's go ahead and look at what that process looks like. Here is the annual budget process. It has a start, it has an end, and it has got multiple different tasks along the way where users will input, review, report, or some background processing that may happen. For each task, right, like we saw in Frank's view, we've got the ability to identify who's involved, what different templates are they going to be interacting with. Again, these are centralized templates that are being maintained once. I'll show you that in a second. So any of those are instantly available to all users that are going to be interacting with those templates. So no more updating files, sending out updates, having different version names tagged onto the end here, like final. I know we've all kind of had different versions of, getting creative with those names. All of that is simplified with selecting the different file that is appropriate for this task. We can identify any tasks or instructions or supporting documentation and specify a specific timeline in which this needs to be done. This could be a hard date or a smart date, which is going to be a little bit more intelligent in understanding when the timer should start, and so giving you the ability to fine-tune this overall process for your needs. Now, the ability to build this is not a technical task, right? This is really meant to be able to be owned and managed by finance. I connect two different tasks together by connecting the dots with an arrow and creating that dependency. If I need to create a new task, I just go here and I do it. There's no technical work involved. It's all driven through this user interface. As this process completes, we do have the ability to track exactly how things are going. Right? It has typically been very difficult for our customers to understand, are there any tasks that are overdue? Where are the bottlenecks within our system? Which users have a lot of tasks on their plate? Are there people, is Betty Barnes, does she have too much work going on? Here we can see that the expense planning task was completed by Frank Jones. It's under review and it's being maintained or is being reviewed by Jane Gold. That's a task that we just completed earlier. So we have the ability to have that complete visibility so that we can drive the process and hopefully get to the point of completing on time. We have 5 days left and a lot of different tasks to complete. So the finance users can take those actions, identify roadblocks, and ultimately corral the team around the goal of completing this task on time. Before I leave this screen here, we do have the files library that I've alluded to a couple of times here, where you can centrally store all of your input templates that you have in Vena. So now they're stored centrally and they can be allocated to tasks. Vena has a library of templates that we can provide that have been used by multiple organizations, and we've adopted the best practices around OpEx planning, workforce planning. You can bring your own templates that are in Excel into Vena and map them back to the data model, and so continue to have that consistent user experience for users. Or take it as an opportunity to rethink exactly how the budget process is being completed. Open up a blank spreadsheet, so to speak, and just rethink what is the most optimal way of doing things, and start from scratch and kind of create a tailored experience in Vena that is appropriate for your business. So here's a little bit of under the hood around exactly kind of how you can orchestrate a process directly inside Vena, right? Again, this is a planning process. What we saw incentive compensation, we saw financial close, There's a whole list of use cases that Alexi showed on his slide. All of those are built and driven in this similar fashion. So you can execute on time, get the resources to coordinate their efforts at the right point in time, and provide them the latest and greatest data and templates so that they can interact in a consistent fashion across all the other collaborators. So I'll pivot again now here to the last part of the demonstration where we're going to head over to the Insights tab. Right, we saw a series of reports in Excel. We saw some dashboards in Excel. Right, oftentimes customers use that interface as a home for their operational dashboard, operational reporting capabilities, things that are consistent, repeatable, and tracking metrics and KPIs that are known. Right, those are the things that we've been monitoring prior to using Vena. We want to be able to have that consistent experience to keep those metrics current and accessible for your users. But with Vena, we also provide the ability to publish all of that metadata into Power BI. This is our go-to-market strategy for any advanced analytics, where our connector will not only get the data into Power BI, it'll get the security model in there, so who can see what department, who has access to what budget scenario, but also the hierarchies, so that's telling us exactly how the products organize up the chain, how the different departments and entities are logically grouped. Once that data is in there, you have the ability to take advantage of all the powerful capabilities of Power BI. A very engaging experience with a lot of rich set of visualizations to consume. We can look at it, kind of in a dynamic way where we can look at it month over month and kind of select different years or different scenarios, consolidate our aggregate view across all the different currencies that we work with. So this is an executive view. We may want to look into our revenue, where we can look at it from a way where we can quickly toggle between our budget, our forecast, our actuals. We can look at revenue, where it's coming from on a map, right? This is, again, all of Power BI capabilities. So the full extent of Power BI is available to me in this embedded experience directly inside of Vena. If you're already using Power BI, the Vena data can publish into your existing instance, so you can continue to consume and build dashboards with Vena data in Power BI desktop. But for the users that are not currently using Power BI and would like to have this capability, you don't need any additional licensing from Microsoft. You can get the licensing from Vena for the platform, so all users now have access to it, and they simply access it directly inside Vena, so the learning curve and the adoption of it is going to be quite high. So there's a lot of different examples, that we can go through on visualizations and different types of data that Power BI can help summarize across operations, people, revenue. But with Power BI, we do have the ability to put tools in the hands of finance to be more strategic and ultimately ask questions around the data that they typically may not be monitoring. So, what are my top 5 accounts? I can look at what are my top 5 products, my top 5 customers. Simply clicking on that will serve up a real-time view of my accounts as it pertains to this part of my, as it pertains to this kind of financial metric. I can also click on different values, different kind of revenue sources, break them down by direct, gross margin, operating expense, and see exactly kind of what the system thinks we will be doing from a forecasting perspective, so giving me some insight on guardrails of leveraging my historical data. What can we anticipate in the future? But it can also identify some anomalies. In this specific situation, it's saying that in, there's a specific account, 4,000, that was a little bit low, right? Historically, that's been one of your stronger accounts. I don't know why that number is lower, but this is something that as a finance user, I probably wasn't analyzing. But by having this data show up in Power BI and creating the different predictive, graphs in Power BI, I'm able to look at this and understand, is this something that I need to take action on? I can take a snippet of this, or I can share it with the team, and we can drill into that detail, right? My next step would likely be to go to Vena, open up a report, understand exactly where the values are, drill down into that report, and see exactly how the different budget values were generated. Was something overlooked? Who was responsible? And I can ultimately take action and identify some business decisions that we can take to be able to rectify this in case it was an actual error. So rolling back to the executive view. Yep.
Samir, just looking at the time, let's see if we can get back to allow some Q&A. So just a few more points and then let Alexi know when he should share a screen.
Yep, for sure. Thanks, Scott. So I was really going to take it back here, just summarize kind of the journey we've gone on. So we looked at multiple different reporting capabilities inside Vena, then we went into the budget process where we were contributing into a OpEx template. We saw how Vena is orchestrating the workflow in the background, ensuring that all the people are working around a unified view of the process, and then opening up the doors to advanced analytics inside of Vena through the use of Power BI. So I'll pause there. I can stop sharing my screen, or Scott, if you can move it over to Alexi, and you're more than happy to take any questions.
Okay, Alexi.
Great. Let me just share my screen. Can everyone? You can see my webcam without my screen.
I see it. I see your screen. No, you had it right.
Oh, you do? Okay. There we are. Back again. Give me just one moment. Dun, 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 dun. A sec. Just popping out a few things here, guys. All right. So to recap, a couple best practices. So implementing a system like Vena, what does it actually take to be successful, with this kind of system? So first is when you're putting the system in, always keep your business-wide objectives in mind. So what exactly are the initiatives which you're trying to accomplish with this? And because ultimately that's going to be guiding the budget and planning process and exactly how designing a system like this. Also want to choose the best time frame for your business. And what I mean by time frame is how frequently would you be looking to actually, reforecast your budget? So if you have an annual budget, are you trying to move to a quarterly, or trying to move to monthly, et cetera here? So it's worth thinking about some of these timelines. Ultimately, it's worth figuring out how granular you want your data to be. So do you want to, if you're a manufacturer, do you want to plan to the SKU level of detail? Do you want to plan to an employee level, plan to store level, et cetera here? It's also worth thinking about this. And also really capturing calculations, incorporating the best data possible. The idea with Vena is that we can get data from any part of an organization, but do you want to include all the data? Is there certain data where you'd like to include more? And who also do you want to be a part of this process? So these are a couple of things we're thinking about. And then also measuring along the way, because you want to actually test that, are your inferences correct? Are you planning in a way which is actually conducive and close to reality? If not, where exactly is the problem? And then you're able to learn and improve for next time going forward. Moment. There we go. In terms of who we work with as well, because people are always interested. Fact is, we have over 1,300 clients today. We have hundreds of clients on Microsoft ERP. So we're talking, Great Plains, Business Central, the list goes on and on. In terms of industries that Vena plays in, we're officially industry agnostic. So with this, we have a lot of clients who are in manufacturing. We have a lot in software. We have higher education, supply chain. The list kind of goes on and on, financial services, et cetera. Have a ton of different use cases, also from some small organization up to large enterprise as well. A lot of people really like the Vena solution because of that Excel interface. In terms of the approach as well that Vena takes, so we've had such a successful relationship with Endeavour because I think we're really aligned in our approaches. How Vena approaches implementations is through a safe, repeatable, collaborative way. But ultimately, what our goal is to figure out what are your key business objectives, what really are you trying to accomplish, and then build a plan accordingly there. So with this being said, there's a couple of different configurations or different approaches we could take to implementation, from a little bit more prescriptive from pre-configured solutions up to more tailored solutions, depending on exactly what the business needs. So with pre-configured solutions, we have solutions for SaaS, for financial services, higher education, hotels, retail, food and bev. The list goes on, and not even just with verticals, also in horizontal. So we have things like CapEx planning, we have reporting solutions, advanced currency, et cetera here. If you're going to want a more tailored system, of course, the price is going to go up. Ballpark, just so we're all aware of costs, it's about a $20,000 a year subscription, but it really depends on your individual use case and exactly what you're looking to get out of the system.
Thanks, Alexi. This one I brought up and inserted into the presentation. They have a really cool website, plantogrow.com. It's one word, but I typed it out so it's easier to read. But it has other recordings, CFO tips, past trade shows, and other collaborative components. I personally use it just to, from a marketing perspective, in addition to talking to clients, getting ahead of some of the financial concerns that they're seeing across their client base and individuals through there. Looking at time-wise, we do have a few questions. Alexi, can you just go on to the next slide, just so people can look at that as we talk. Endeavour's been around for 33 years and a variety of services. For those that are watching recording and don't know who we are, and those that are our clients online, thanks again for your business over the years. One of the questions is multilingual, supporting English and French. I know Excel's multilingual, the Vena components. Are they multilingual, Alexi?
Yeah, so in terms of Vena, we can support it in English and French. That's not a big problem. If you start to go with other different languages, we're currently developing them, but English and French are good for.
Okay. A little bit more around implementation and training. I know we took that slide out to save some time, but it came back in. From the implementation and training, typically, beginning, middle, and end, what are your plans? What are the designs? And then often a co-development. So what I've found on recent Endeavour projects that Endeavour's worked with is if there's 3 or 4 key modules, key business models, key reports that Vena does some of them. Training sort of works collaboratively to build the next 1 or 2, and then there's some components where clients become self-sufficient and start building out those additional models. So that comes along a maturity map, as post implementation, what post go live is, and all the support that you get through Vena, as well as just what the original project plans are and who you're working with. I have found that when it came to the labor side, different individuals are working with the labor calculations compared to, say, financial close, and obviously different individuals, so you don't have that overlap in training. So those modules sort of move to different aspects. Why don't we go on to one last slide? So Serge, I see you do have a few other questions. We can take that offline. And for others who have questions as well, we're at the top of the hour. Next steps is really a deeper dive and discovery, a discussion, even a personalized demo with Vena. To start there and to get to that point, either reach out to Trish, James, or Steve, or reply to the webinar invite, or reach out to your favorite Endeavour consultant or the Endeavour support desk. All lines basically report and with feedback to myself, and Alexi and I will make sure that we're able to answer your questions, get the right individuals on the line, and embark on your journey when you're ready. As you saw from the demo that Samir had, very broad and wide aspects and capabilities within the Vena solution as a platform, and looking at it as a platform for financial planning, for reporting, for the scenarios, for the financial closes, for individual line of business reporting and analytics, consolidating data across different systems, and that whole workflow aspect and planning. Sort of the irony that you have a planning tool that's going to help you do your financial planning. So those components together really does elevate it. We find that Vena fits within our, the top half of our clients that have that complexity, and we're proud of the tools and capabilities that does bring to our clients. So with that said, thank you very much, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.
Thanks so much, everyone.